Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Shalom.
All right, I am Bishop Taz here with brother Ash of the House of Judah International Fellowship Church, and today we are back with this part 10 of our Children of Israel series, going into the tribe of Naphtali. Right. So first and foremost, I want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshaya Wa Rawak. For those who do not know the Hebrew, that is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Right now, sort of just to give everybody a brief overview, and sort of for those who are new to this particular series and coming around for the first time, a lesson that's going to be important as we go into this lesson later on is going to actually be the first part of this series, which is the children of the 12 tribe chart, right? And the reason why that's important is because we brought up a lot of different particular countries in that video that are going to become relevant in this particular lesson. So after you finish watching this particular video, make sure you go back and check that out so that you get more context as to why we're speaking about these countries in particular, right? Now, last week we went into the tribe of Asher, right? This week we're going into their next door neighbor, and the children of Israel, that the tribe of Asher was neighbors to the tribe of Naphtali, right? And one thing that I wanted to put out right out front is they're similar in a lot of ways to, as far as the fact that a lot of the prophecies given to them by Jacob and Moses were twofold, meaning that they happened while we were in the kingdom of Israel, in the land of Israel. And they also apply to the last days, as Jacob implied in Genesis chapter 49. We say this every week. The last days is from the advent of Christ, the birth of Christ, to now, to the end of times. That's the last days, right? So, not going to waste any time. Let's get into the tribe of Naphtali. Let's get Genesis chapter 49, verse 21.
Genesis 49:21. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words.
And I want to let you all know, make sure that you follow pretty closely, because we're going to be going to a lot of sources and a lot of different scriptures. So sort of just flow with it and follow, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing that Jacob says about Naphtali is that Naphtali is a hind let loose. That word hind means deer. So it means he's a swift deer, right? If you're holding a deer and you let it go, it takes off. It's very fast. Deer are very swift, right? So he says that Naphtali is a hind let loose. He's a fast or swift deer. Go ahead and read that second part, Brother Ash.
Deuteronomy 33:23. And Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor, full with the blessing of the Lord, possesses thou the west and the south.
Okay, so like Asher, and much like the other brothers, Naphtali's blessing from Jacob is largely based on his character, right? So Asher's blessing, we didn't know too much about who Asher was as a person, besides for the fact that he was favored by his brothers, right? But unlike Asher, Naphtali, his prophecy is largely based around who he was as a man, the way that he lived, right? Now, like Asher, his prophecies pertain to this side of the last days, the other side of the last days, and this side of the last days, meaning before Christ and after Christ, right? So, in the last days, Naphtali was prophesied to be like a swift deer, right? This is an important character trait that Naphtali had, that Jacob noticed and that Jacob utilized, right? This is also something that his children would inherit. This is not something that was specific to Naphtali only. It was something that was passed down to his children. The speed, the athleticism, right? Naphtali also proves this in his own testament. But before we go to his testament, go back and get Genesis 49:21 one more time.
Genesis 49:21. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words.
He giveth goodly words. Now, a lot of people see those words as kind words. That word in Hebrew means kind, beautiful, right? Wise. So what it's saying here is that Naphtali would speak wise words, right? They're full of wisdom, right? And when you read Naphtali, how many in here have read Naphtali's testament? If you go and take about 15 to 20 minutes out of your day to read Naphtali's testament, you'll see just how wise he was, right? So it says, Naphtali is a hind let loose. He's a swift deer, and he giveth goodly words. Let's get the Testament of Naphtali, chapter 1, verse 13. This is the online version, not the physical text. Go ahead.
Testament of Naphtali, chapter 1, verse 13. And I was swift on my feet like the deer, and my father Jacob appointed me for all messages. And as a deer did he give me his blessing.
So Naphtali proves here that because of his characteristics, his speed, his swiftness, his father not only utilized that gift, but he blessed him according to that gift. Right? Naphtali also said that he was actually, go ahead and get Joshua chapter 54, verse 36. How fast was he? Read.
Joshua chapter 54, verse 36. And Naphtali went as Judah had commanded him. For Naphtali was light-footed as one of the swift stags.
Once again, a deer. Read.
And he would go upon the ears of corn, and they would not break under him.
So has anybody ever seen a stalk of corn, like a field of corn, how tall they are, right? He could run on top of ears of corn without them breaking under him. That's how swift he was. So his speed was legendary for his time, right? It was legendary, which is why when we read in the lesson on Judah, when we read about Judah telling Naphtali to go number the streets, there's a reason why he sent Naphtali, because Naphtali was the one who could get it done the quickest, right? And when his father needed to deliver a message from one place to another, who did they send? They sent Naphtali. He was the quickest. He was the fastest, right? This plays a pivotal role in the people that we identify today, right? Now, the scriptures also say that Naphtali would give beautiful words or give goodly words. These words are primarily words of wisdom, right? And this would also translate to the children as well, to his children and to his children's children, all the way up until the last days. Keep in mind, the scripture, Jacob said, let me tell you what shall befall you when? In the last days. So this is something that's going to be important as we witness or as we break down who the tribe of Naphtali is in scripture, right? Now I'm keeping this linear because we have a lot of information to go over and not a long time and not a ton of time to get through it. So follow us here, right? So by reading Naphtali's testament, you can see how eloquently he speaks and the wisdom that he delivers. So take some time to go through and read the testament of Naphtali, and you'll understand exactly why why Jacob attributed goodly words to his children as well, right? Because if you have an elder that teaches wisdom to his children, what do his children gain? Wisdom. And if they teach that same wisdom to their children, what do they gain? Right? So wisdom does not go away if it's taught to the children. There's a saying in New Zealand amongst the Maori, and they say it takes one generation to lose a language and 3 generations to get it back. Right? So the idea of what wisdom is and how it's translated, how quickly it can be lost and how long it takes to get it back. Right? This particular tribe takes pride in their elders and the wisdom of their elders. Right? So it's something that continues to be passed on from generation to generation. Right? Naphtali had a deep connection with the Most High and a connection to the creation of the Most High. When you read the testament of Naphtali, you can see just how connected with the Most High he is. Naphtali was a physician. He understood the parts of the body and what they were for. Right? And when you read the testament of Naphtali, that's why the scriptures talk about transplants and different things like that, having certain organs removed and replaced, right? When they say, oh yeah, we're going to go and remove your appendix, or we're going to go on and remove this or remove that. When you read the testament of Naphtali, there's a reason why the scriptures tell us not to do that, right? Because he tells you what spirit dwells there. Rage, anger, those certain things, when they're removed, you lose those things, right? So his connection to the Most High and understanding the intentional methods that the Most High used to make creation, to create all that we see, he understands. That takes a deep connection with the Most High. Right? And it is this wisdom. It is this understanding of God. It is this understanding of the spirit of the Most High and the spirit of his people that would be perpetually passed down through his descendants. Right? Naphtali was also known for being as faithful and dependent as and dependable as any of his brothers when it came to their protection. I'm going to say that again. Naphtali was known amongst his brothers as sort of what you would call a shield. He protected all of his brothers with his life, right? And we read that last week in the lesson on Asher. What did they say in the lesson on Asher? What did they say about Naphtali? He and Zebulun cared not for their lives. They sent as many troops as they could, right? Because it's for the defense of the nation, right? So that was something that was passed down from their father Naphtali, right? Naphtali in the book of Jasher is found often entering in to save or assist his brothers at the perfect times. Let's get Jasher chapter 39, verse 47.
Jasher 39, verse 47.
Mm-hmm.
And Naphtali went up with the wrath, excited might.
Go ahead and read that a little bit louder.
And Naphtali went up with his wrath, excited might, and sprang upon the first wall to see what caused the noise of shouting which they had heard in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And Issachar and Zebulun drew nigh to break the doors of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And they opened the gates of the city and came into the city.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 48. And Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second and came to assist his brothers. And the inhabitants of Gash who were upon the wall, seeing Naphtali was the third who had came up to assist his brothers.
Okay, so a little bit of context as to what's happening here. This was a time of war and conquering for the patriarchs, right? There were you're looking at about 9 to 10 brothers at this time, conquering entire cities, right? And when you read the book of Jasher, this is probably the most difficult time that our fathers had in fighting a city and warring with a city. While our father Jacob and his sons were battling the people of Gaash, Judah fell into great danger. In an effort to save him, Dan also fell into the same danger, right? So what happened was Judah, while fighting, got hit upside the head. He's got what we know as a concussion. Can't see straight, can't think straight, right? He's disoriented, right? And while he's up on this wall, they're shooting arrows and throwing stones at him. So he's being killed. And Dan, hearing his brothers cry, went to go save him. But Dan was overcome by the same arrows and stones. So Naphtali hears his brothers, and he rushes to the city, jumps upon one wall, jumps to the other wall where they are, grabs them, keep in mind, while having arrows and stones shot at him, grabs both of his brothers, and jumps back. Go ahead and read.
They all fled and descended into the city, and Jacob and all his sons and all their young men came into the city to them.
So not only did he save his brothers, but at the sight of Naphtali, the army of Gaash fled. At the sight of this man, seeing this gargantuan size of a man jump from one wall to another, grab his brothers, jump from that wall back. Upon seeing him, everybody fled. The fear that he struck into these people. Right? Let's get Jasher chapter 39, verse 62.
Jasher 39, verse 62. And the powerful man ran to Judah to strike him upon the head with the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no shield in the hand of Judah, and whistled he, aiming to strike him. Naphtali hastily took his shield and put it to Judah's head, and the swords of the powerful man hit the shield of Naphtali, and Judah escaped the sword.
So Naphtali once again saves Judah, right? While Judah's lost his sword in a battle with one of the men of Gaash, he's about to be killed. And who comes in to save him once again? Right? Naphtali was also responsible for saving Levi on multiple occasions. Simeon and Levi had no shields, were about to be overcome. So who goes and gets shields and brings it to them to save them? Naphtali. Judah almost falls off of a wall because he believes he can scale the wall the same way that his brothers can. He almost fell and died. Who caught him? Naphtali. Right? So Naphtali, when it comes to his brothers, was always in the perfect place at the perfect time to protect his brothers. Right? And in reading the testament of Naphtali, you also see that he has great knowledge of his brothers on the same level that his father does concerning his brothers. Right? So the same things, the same attributes that Jacob sees in his sons, right? And that he uses to show them what will befall them in the last days. Naphtali also holds that same wisdom of his brothers and what they're great at, what their attributes are, to the point to where the Most High gave him a vision showing him where his brothers were dropped off in the sea when they were scattered, right? So this is the connection that Naphtali had, not only with the Most High, but the connection that he had with all of his brothers, right? Let's get Judges chapter 5, verse 18.
Judges chapter 5, verse 18. Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high place of the field.
So Naphtali was prophesied to be a protector, right? That's just who Naphtali is. He's a protector, right? And you can imagine a person with not only the athletic ability, the strength, the wisdom, the power of Naphtali. How much more comes out of him when it comes to the protection of his own and his brothers. Keep that in mind, because it's going to come around again, right? So we see he's a hind let loose. He has speed. That's something that will be passed down to his children. The athleticism, right? Naphtali was not a small man. He was not a small man. But he was blessed with speed, athleticism, and strength, power, right? It also says that he would give goodly words, meaning wisdom, right? He's also charged with sort of the guarding or the support of his brothers, right? Let's continue. The Most High also states in Deuteronomy 33. As a matter of fact, let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 33 at the top. Deuteronomy chapter 33.
Deuteronomy 33, verse 23.
Mm-hmm.
And Naphtali said of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessings of the Lord.
What does satisfied with favor mean? Satisfied with favor means beauty, blessed with beauty, right? Now, a lot of people interpret this one way, when in fact it's interpreted two ways. Not just the beauty as far as the good looks of Naphtali and the good looks that will be passed on to his children, but the beauty of their land. This is a prophecy of the land that they would dwell on, that they would live on. Right? And don't worry, I'm going to prove it, because a lot of people think that this is only interpreted one way or the other. It's not. It's interpreted both ways. Naphtali was not only the second best looking of all of his brothers behind Joseph, but the land that he inherited in Israel and the land that he would inherit today is some of the most beautiful land, the most beautiful and fertile land on the planet Earth. So go ahead and continue Deuteronomy 33.
Possessest thou the west and the south?
Possesseth thou the west and the south? We're going to come back to that. Because there's also a discrepancy according to scripture with that as well. Right? So Naphtali would be blessed and full with beauty, right? And the scriptures also say that he would be full of the blessing of the Most High, meaning that he's full of his connection to the Most High and his creation, right? But once again, this blessing of beauty is twofold. It's talking about the land and the people, right? The physical countenance of the people as well as the land that they live on. How do we know this? Let's get Joshua chapter 19, verse 32. Again, that is Joshua chapter 19, verse 32. Let's get that.
The sixth lot came out to the children of Naphtali, even for the children of Naphtali according to their families.
So this is the land that they were allotted in the land of Israel, the northern kingdom. Read.
And their coast was from Helf, from Alon to Zemian, and Abdin to Nebek, and Edbin unto Lakum.
Mm-hmm.
And the outgoings therefore were at Jordan.
We're at Jordan. Keep that in mind. Read.
And then the coast turneth westwards to Azal Tabor, and goeth out from thence to Hukah,
mm-hmm.
and reacheth to Zebulun on the south side.
So he borders Zebulun as well. Read.
And reaches to Asher on the west side, and on to Judah upon Jordan towards the sun rising.
Right. So now keep in mind, a lot of people think that Judah is far south of Naphtali. It is not talking about the land of Judah, but Judah did possess parts of Gilead, the land of Gad. Right. So this isn't talking about Judah's physical land. It's talking about the land that Judah possessed in the land of Gad. Understand? Right. So it's not talking about far south. It's only talking about the borders of the land of Gad. So you're seeing that he's bordering Asher, Zebulun, and Gad. Right? And the Jordan River is a big part of that beauty that we're about to talk about. Read.
Verse 39. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Naphtali according to their families, the cities and the villages.
So this is the land that the Most High allotted them. Right? So Naphtali's land was centered on the shores of Galilee, giving them some of the most fertile and productive land in Canaan. How many of you know that when you're positioned next to large bodies of flowing water, your land is going to be fertile? It's common sense. And the Sea of Galilee happens to be one of the largest bodies of flowing water in the middle of land in the Middle East. Their land was positioned directly around it. Right? Naphtali's land, this is why often Naphtali's land was called the Garden of Palestine. That's how beautiful it was. It looked like a garden. Everything could grow there in abundance and in beauty, and the land was extremely fertile. Right? So Naphtali's land was watered by multiple sources, including the Jordan River, the hidden springs of Mount Hermon. Keep in mind, Mount Hermon was also in the land of Naphtali, and the Sea of Galilee. The only land in Israel that was being watered from 3 separate, very lucrative water sources. Right? This made Naphtali's land much easier for farmers and shepherds. Right? Now keep in mind, Naphtali's land is very mountainous as well. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. It's going to come to play a factor later on. Right? So the beauty of their land in Israel would also be reflected in the lands in which they would end up in the last days. Understand? So they would not only have beauty in the land of Israel, but they would have beauty in the land in which they dwell today for the same reasons. Are you following? So for the same reasons of there being a constant water source, being surrounded by a water source, it's the same thing as it's the same reasons as to why the lands that they would be on would be beautiful as well, beautiful and fertile as well. Khan? Naphtali was also known for being comely. What does comely mean? Beautiful, right? A good countenance, right? A lot of people are like, well, the scriptures don't say that. They actually do. Let's get the Testament of Naphtali, chapter 1, verse 6. Once again, this is the online version. This is the Testament of Naphtali, chapter 1, verse 6. Go ahead and get that.
Testament of Naphtali, chapter 1, verse 6.
Mhm.
I was born from Bilhah.
Mhm.
And because Rachel dealt craftily and gave Bilhah in place of herself to Jacob,
Mhm.
and she conceived and bare me upon Rachel's knees.
Mhm.
Therefore she called my name Naphtali.
So Naphtali wasn't born from Rachel or Leah. He was born from Rachel's handmaid, Bilhah. Right? And he was born upon the knees of Rachel. So this is basically this is Rachel's first child. Right? That's not her own child. But think of it like a surrogate mother. Right? So this is Rachel's first child. He was born on Rachel's lap. Read.
For Rachel loved me very much because I was born upon her lap.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was still young, she was wont to kiss
me.
She was wont to kiss me and say, "May I have a brother of thine from mine own womb, like unto thee." So
she always longed to have a son that would be just like Naphtali. So think about her holding this child that isn't necessarily her own, but she loves it as if her own. And she's like, wow, I want to have a baby that's exactly like you. Mm-hmm. Right? Read.
Whence also Joseph was like unto me in all things, according to the prayers of Rachel.
So the Most High answered her prayers and gave her a carbon copy of Naphtali. Not only in character, not only in wisdom, but also in looks. Naphtali said that Joseph was like unto him in all things. according to the prayers of Rachel. Right? So what do we know of Joseph as far as his visage, the way that he looked? Let's get Jasher chapter 42. This is Jasher chapter 42, verse 6.
Jasher 42, verse 6. And these Midianites ran to the pit to drink water, for they thought that it contained water. And on coming before the pit, they heard the voice of Joseph crying and weeping in the pit.
So his brothers threw him in the pit. Right? A lot of people don't know because they haven't read the book of Joshua. They didn't sell him right away. Joseph went through some stuff on the way to being sold. He was sold twice, from the Midianites to the Ishmaelites, before he was taken to the land of Egypt. Right? He'd been through some stuff. So he's been in this pit, in this well that they threw him down for quite a while now. And they thought that he would have been dead because there's serpents, there's scorpions in there, but the Most High did not allow serpents or scorpions to touch Joseph, right? So the Midianites come to get some water and they see Jacob down there crying. Read.
They looked down into the pit and they saw, and behold, there was a youth of comely appearance.
He was handsome. Read.
A youth of comely appearance and well favored.
Verse 9. Dropping down to verse 9. Read.
And the Midianites answered and said unto the sons of Jacob, Is this your servant, or does this man attend you?
Okay, so is this your servant, or does this man attend you? These are the questions that they asked Joseph's brother, the tribes. Read.
Peradventure you are all his servants, for he is more comely and more well favored than any of you. And why do you all speak falsely unto us?
So they said, well, he's our servant. And they said, why are you lying? This young man right here is better looking than all of y'all. He looks better taken care of than all of y'all. Right? So if Jacob is well favored and as handsome as he is, keep in mind, when he went into the land of Egypt, he was well known for being the most handsome man in Egypt. Right? So considering the fact that he was made as a copy of Naphtali, what does that tell you about Naphtali? He was a pretty handsome dude too. Right? So when people take this prophecy of him being satisfied with favor and only attributing it to the land, you're mistaken. Because Naphtali wasn't an ugly dude. He was a very handsome dude. His children were very handsome as well. So satisfied with favor is a twofold prophecy. Right? Now, the Most High also gives us, the Most High via Moses also gives us a physical location of where Naphtali would be in the last days. Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 23 says, go ahead and you're going to get it? Go ahead and get it.
Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 23. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessings of the Lord, possessest thou the southwest and the south.
So he said, possesseth thou the west and the south. Now there's a problem here. The west and the south are two different directions. Right? And when you look at and a lot of people would say that this is attributed to the southwest of the land of Israel. But if you look at the southwest of the land of Israel, that's the land of Reuben, Ra'awabad, right? Not the land of Naphtali. Naphtali is the northernmost of all of Israel. So this is not talking about the southwest. That word west, what we find when you look at the Hebrew, that word west is mistranslated. It's mistranslated. So in order to nail down where Moses is saying that they would be in the last days, we have to find out what that word west in Hebrew actually is. Let's look at the Hebrew and see what that word is. Go ahead and get that translation. Hebrew word H3220 in your Hebrew concordance. Again, that is the Hebrew word H3220 in your concordance. Go ahead and read what that is.
Yam definition C.
So Yam is the word that's there in place of west. So that word Yam means sea. In context, this word Yam is plural. So what that word west actually is seas. So let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 33 and replace that word west with seas.
And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessings of the Lord, possesses thou the sea and the south.
Possess thou the sea and the south. Right? The south seas. The seas of the south. Right? If you look up South Sea or seas of the south in your dictionary, on Google, on Bing, wherever you want to set it up, what comes up is South Seas. Right? Because it's the southernmost part of the Pacific. Right? So now, before we get into breaking down the tribes, we have to set our criteria. We do this every week, right? So these are the requirements when searching for the tribe of Naphtali. And we're going to knock off each one as we prove, right? Number one is the curses, as always. Number two, dwells in the South Seas, the seas of the South, right? Number three, extremely beautiful and bountiful land, right? So their land must also fill the prophecy of being satisfied with favor. The people must fulfill the prophecy of being satisfied with favor. Number five, incredibly athletic, fast, and powerful, right? Number six, full of wisdom. And number seven, they must be fierce warriors, as Naphtali was a fierce warrior, right? Now, before we get into the second part, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break before we come back to prove the tribe of Naphtali. Everybody ready? All right. Get excited. It's about to get real fun. All right, let's go.
Yo, this goes out to my brother Gabal and to his two seeds, Geronimo and Camilla. Stand up, Naphtali. Bring that truth back to the South Pacific Seas, back to the four corners of the earth, man. Stand up. Speak that truth. Let it be known.
Pacifica! A beautiful, always humble in the heart, sharing the love, welcome and blessing. You be beautiful, brown skin, brown eyes, dark black hair, muscled up, just call us the Naphtali tribe. From the 12 tribes of Jacob, catch us in the South Pacific with the spirit of navigation. Traveled in boats bigger than James Cook. Traveled to South America before Mr. Columbus came and took it. We are the greatest navigators in the planet. We use the stars, galaxies when we're traveling. My people were blessed, even though we struggle with stress, even though we fighting each other, we indigenous to the step. My people were heritage is one of a kind. Even before you heard this in churches, but you can relate to the crime. The curse is the fittest, the Holy Bible's my witness. The Holy Bible predicted our history like a vision. But South Pacific warriors were being slaves, suffered the torture to get it beaten while a woman will break. Tears from a young kid's praying to the Most High, not the God of the missionaries, cause they brought life. If you're a Christian or Catholic or backwards, see your history and you're being surprised afterwards. It's time for every indigenous black tribe to remember where you came from, the islands.
Nations wide, the sweet sin of paradise. Islands of native tribes. It's time to rise. United as one, my pioneers. United as one, for the love of the people.
My sister, you were beautiful the way you are. The Most High has made you a queen, and your king is a true far. From Micronesia, Melanesia, Polynesia, Queens. From mother to daughter, you the blessing in the South Seas. I love you, my sister, everything is okay. The smoking, the drinking, lusting up the sex is the wrong way. Remember how our parents raised us, keeping us healthy and strong every single night. They pray for us. Always remember yourself first. Don't give up your treasure that easy. Believe me, you get yourself hurt. Always remain strong, even the single moms. But with a woman nowadays, you feeling the heat of love. Don't be a copy of another on the TV. Cause when they see you, they see you not like when you're beautiful, natural, one of a kind, respectful, intelligent, and the super superior woman, believe it. My brother, it's time for us to re-educate. Gather the South Pacific and bring them to the village lane. It's time for unity, gather the whole tribe. From the gutters to the ghetto or islanders worldwide. Just imagine if we came together, building communities. Picture a younger generation happy achieving dreams. Be like the Polynesian Panthers, where your warriors always humble, but when there's trouble we handle it. When are we gonna realize that a history and a culture is in the Bible of the lost tribes? Our ancestors kept the laws and commandments while we over here thinking about money, women, and mansions. King Geronimo, Princess Camila, see your history and you'll be surprised later. It's time for every indigenous black tribe to remember where you came from, Naphtali.
Nations wide, the sweet scent of paradise. Islands of native tribes. It's time to rise. Unite as one, my nations. Unite as one, for the love of the people.
Genesis 30:7-8. And Belial, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestling have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. Genesis 49:21. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly word. Deuteronomy 33:23. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor, and full with the blessings of thy power. Possess thou the west and the south. Ezekiel 37:21. And say unto them, thus saith the Most High thy power. Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. Your kingdom represents from the bottom to the top. Don't stop, time to gather up Jacob. Give it all we got, do it all for the Most High. Genesis 49:10. Yeshua, gotta chase after righteousness. Warrior, from the habitations of Hawaii to Samoa. One time for the South Pacific. Solomon to the Fiji Islands, let's get it. Each one teach one, we just begun. 12,000 leaders needed for the kingdom. From all 12 tribes, do the math, it's 144,000 drafted. But we first gotta pick up this Sabbath. Put away all abomination, trash it. For the Most High, keep his commandments. We only suffer cause we went off on a tangent.
Nations wide, the sweet scent of paradise. Islands of native tribes. It's time to rise. Unite as one, my nations. Unite as one, for the love of the people.
Kwam Yasha Allah is real.
All right, so we are back for the second half of this lesson on tribe of Naphtali. I want to remind everybody who's watching, like, share, subscribe, follow, do whatever you got to do. And we know that there's some brothers and sisters in here from the tribe of Naphtali. Feel free to drop some information that we can present that supports the lesson as well. So let's get into the second part. Our first source is going to be coming from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, South Seas, right? We're going to be going into a lot of sources in this second half, right? So just flow with us. Merriam-Webster.com, South Seas. Go ahead and get that, brother.
Definition of South Seas: of or relating to the seas of the southern hemisphere and especially the South Pacific.
Especially the South Pacific, right? So remember, Moses quite literally gave him a geographical location, same as what he did with the tribe of Asher when he said that your feet shall be as iron and brass. The land that you're walking on will be as iron and brass, right? And the land actually was named iron. So it's no different here than what Moses is doing. Moses is saying you're going to dwell in the South Pacific, the South Seas, right? So knowing that the South Seas refers to islands in the Pacific Ocean, these islands specifically known as Fiji, Tonga, Hawaii, Samoa, New Zealand, right? The southernmost being New Zealand, right? These are the South Pacific, the islands in the South Pacific, right? Now there's plenty more, but these are the primary ones that people know as the islands being in the Pacific, right? The Pacific Islands, right? And these particular lands are also known for being some of the most beautiful and popular vacation spots on the planet. How many have ever went on Google and just looked at pictures of certain islands and like, dang, I wish I could go there? At least once a year, look up and see how much a flight ticket is, right? It's one of the world's leading vacation spots because of how beautiful it is, how clear the water is, the diversity of nature, animals, fruit, food, right? This is what these lands are known for, being extremely bountiful and beautiful, right? So with that, not only do we fulfill the South Seas prophecy concerning Moses, we also fulfill the beauty aspect of these lands as well, right? New Zealand being one of the primary places used by movie producers for its scenery. A lot of the movies that you've seen where you're seeing hilly mountains and waterfalls, most likely what you're seeing is a scene that was filmed from New Zealand, right? So these lands are known for being beautiful. When you hear Hawaii, what do you think? You think the sandy beaches of Hawaii, right? You think poi, you think the coconut trees, right? That's what you think when you hear Hawaii. Tonga, you think of paradise. Fiji, paradise, beauty, right? So it's no secret what these islands in the Pacific are known for, right? Now, this shows that the beauty attributed to the land as well as the land itself proves that this should be the land that the scriptures are talking about. However, just because we found the land does not mean that the people on it are the tribe of Naphtali. I'm going to say that again. Just because we found the area that the scriptures say that Naphtali should possess, right, possessing the South Seas, it does not mean that the people on those islands are the tribe of Naphtali. That still needs to be proven, right? Requirements still must be filled. The South Pacific is home to thousands of islands and three groups of people known as the Polynesians, Micronesians, and Melanesians. Again, those are the Polynesians, Micronesians, Melanesians. In order to prove that the South Pacific Islanders are Israelites, we must first trace the origins of these three groups, right? Because one group could be from the tribe of Naphtali, but another might not be. Two groups might be, but one might not be. So in order to fully understand who is what and who comes from where, we have to trace the origins all the way back to one, right? And the good thing is that Polynesian, Micronesian, and Melanesian history is very well recorded. So finding the origin of these three groups in the Isles of the Pacific can also add to better detail as to their journey to said islands, right? So that history, going back to where all these three groups came from, can also better help us detail where they came from, how they got to those islands. You don't just spawn up on an island. You have to get there, right? So that's going to be a part of what we're trying to find out here today, right? This is why I'm telling you, remember what we went over in part 1 with the 12 tribe chart. Those other groups that we talked about, the land of Sinem, Portuguese India. Keep these things in mind because they're going to come back around. They're going to circle back around, right? So the name Polynesian means many countries, while the name Micronesian means small countries, and Melanesian means black countries. And when it says black, it's not talking about the look of the country, it's talking about the look of the people in that country. So these are black people. The Melanesians are known to be black people, hence why the name of the country means black countries, right? The Polynesians are by far the largest group in the Pacific among these three. Micronesians is small islands. That's because the Micronesians are a very small group. You're looking at about primarily 3 islands: Kiribati, Caroline, and Marshall, right? And the Melanesian islands, now with the Polynesians being the largest group, they hold true to the idea that the Micronesians are from their people, right? West to east. So they believe that they passed through Micronesia to get to Polynesia. However, they hold true that Melanesians are not their people. They have no relation. Why? They don't believe that the Melanesians are related to them for the same reason that black people don't believe that they are Israelites, because of their skin color. Right? We know this because when you read Talafa'a Solopito o Samoa, which means history of Samoa, they detail their journey from west to east. Khan? They detail their history all the way from their origin, all the way down through the country from which they came and out to the islands to which they are dispersed today. Let's get the history of Samoa by Fred Henry. This is on page 2.
History of Samoa by Fred Henry. Even if we look at the Melanesians.
Now keep in mind, actually, I'm going to show you a picture of this book. This book is completely written in Samoan. It's not written in English. Right? They don't print these anymore. You can't find them anywhere, right? You can't find these books anywhere. I can't say how much, how difficult it was to find and how much it cost, right? But this particular book is only written in Samoan. It's only written in their native tongue. It had to be translated into English, right? So go ahead and read.
Even if we look at the Melanesians, black countries such as Fiji, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, and New Guinea, they and the Polynesians respond very differently to all of that. The same is true. We hold that the descendants of Samoa and the other Polynesians did not come to those lands or pass through, and they are by no means related to Melanesian countries. Color.
So because of their color, the black skin of the Melanesians, they don't believe that they passed through nor came to those countries of Melanesia, right? When you divide the Pacific Islands, the Micronesians are in what you would call the Northwest. The Melanesians are in the Southwest, and the Polynesians possess everything else. So they believe that they passed over Melanesia, right? We have a map. To show you how they detailed their journey. If you have, for those in the room, look behind you or on your phone. For those who are watching, it's up on your screen for you, right? Look at the detailed journey of which they came. They believe that they came from Persia, the Caspian Sea area. How many of you know where the Caspian Sea or Persia is at? Assyria. These people claim that they journeyed from Assyria down through India, Afghanistan, Southeast Asia, out to the island of Indonesia, and then up to the islands of Indonesia, Malaysia, and then over Melanesia, through what you see as the Philippines, the Caroline Islands, Marshall, and all the way out to what we know now as Polynesia, right? But notice, they completely bypassed the Solomon Islands, the Solomon Islands and New Guinea towards the Southwest. So they believe that their journey bypassed nor ever passed through through the Melanesian islands, the black islands, the black countries. So Samoans, who are one of the primary groups of the North Pacific Islands, before detailing their journey to the islands, makes clear that they do not believe that the Melanesians are related to them in any way, nor having ever passed through their countries on their way to Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand, which are the Maori, the Tahiti, Hawaii, and Rapa Nui, and etc. There's other islands in Polynesia as well. So their claim is we have no relation to Melanesians. So the Micronesians and the Polynesians, according to the history and according to DNA, are the same. So now we've dwindled these three groups down to 2. So you have the Polynesians and the Melanesians. And it is widely agreed upon that they are separate people. Is that true? There's a academic article from academicoup.com, or academic.oup.com, and it's an article that shows a study. It's called Melanesian and Asian Origins of Polynesians, Maternal DNA, and Y chromosome gradients across the Pacific. This is going to give us a little context as to the origins of the Polynesians. Why? Because we have to know the origins of these people in order to trace them back to Israel. Right? Go ahead and get that.
Melanesian and Asian origins of Polynesians, maternal DNA and Y chromosome gradients across the Pacific. Polynesians originated in Asia according to linguistic evidence.
So they're saying according to the language that they speak, they are of Asian origin. According to language, right? Read.
Or in Melanesia, according to archaeological evidence.
So according to hard facts, archaeological evidence, they are from Melanesia. Read. Let's get the genetic evidence. Read.
To shed light on the genetic origins of Polynesians, we investigated over 400 Polynesians from 8 island groups. In comparison with over 900 individuals from potential parental populations of Melanesia, Southeast and East Asia and Australia by means of Y chromosome.
NRY, which is the father. NRY is paternal DNA. What do we know about the father? If you come from your father, you are what your father is. You aren't what your mother is. You are who your father is. So the paternal DNA is always the stronger in the child. Right? So they're examining the parental populations of Melanesia, Southeast, and East Asia. So Southeast Asia, you're looking at Cambodia. You're looking at places like Cambodia, Laos, and different places like that. And they're looking at Australia as well, which is the Aborigines, right? And the islands off the coast. So you have the Y chromosome, which is the paternal DNA. Read.
And mitochondrial DNA, maternal markers,
which is the maternal markers, right? Read.
Overall, we classify 94.1% of Polynesians' Y chromosomes and 99.8% of Polynesians' maternal DNAs as of either Melanesian or Asian origins, suggests a dual genetic origin of Polynesians in agreement with the slow boat hypothesis. So to break this down, it says that we classified 94.1% of Polynesians. Check the chat, Elder. So 94.1% of the Polynesian Y chromosomes and 99.8% of Polynesian maternal DNA as of either Melanesian. Now keep in mind, it says here that the Melanesian Y chromosome, or the parental chromosome, right, is 65.8% Melanesian. This is Polynesians, right? So the paternal DNA connects with the Polynesians via Melanesians, 65.8%, while the maternal DNA is only 6%. So that means 65% of the intermarriages with Asians was only, majority of those relationships were 65.8% men. And only 6% women. It says the Asian DNA, the male chromosome or the Y chromosome, is only 28.3%, and the maternal DNA is 93.8%. You see what this is showing here? It's showing that they are not Asians, they are not Japhetic, they are Melanesian. Their fathers were Melanesian. A lot of their mothers were Asian. Hence why they look the way that they do. Because a lot of those who would deny that the Polynesians, Micronesians, and Melanesians are Israel would say, because, well, they're Chinese, they're Asian.
But what it's showing here is that only their maternal DNA is Asian. Which means what? Their fathers were Melanesian. So now we have to understand where the Melanesians come from. And if the Melanesians can be traced back to Israel, then we know that these people are in fact Israelites. Different angle, huh? This is why I need you to follow, right? Go ahead and continue reading.
Our data suggests a pronounced admixture bias in Polynesians towards more Melanesian men than women.
More Melanesian men than women. So women weren't mixing as much with Gentiles as opposed to the men. Right? Go ahead and read.
Perhaps as a result of metrolocal residence in the ancestral Polynesian society.
So the conclusion that they come to is that Micronesian, keep in mind, Micronesians come from Polynesians. So Micronesians and Polynesians are one and the same, right? But East Asia, and they say that that these particular people, right, after looking at the DNA from the Polynesian, the Micronesian race, the Melanesian race in East Asia, particularly Taiwan, because what they say is, Elder, pull up the map one more time, right? Because this is I'm going to show you something here. Right? A lot of people say that the Polynesian people come from Taiwan. When you look at Taiwan, if you look at the Philippines, go further north of the Philippines and you see the island of Taiwan. They claim that the Polynesians came from the island of Taiwan, moved south to the Philippines, out to the Caroline and Marshall Islands, and then further out to the Pacific. They claim that their origins lie in Taiwan, even though Samoans have debunked this idea, saying that they came from Assyria, right? The DNA proves that they do not come from Taiwan. They are not Chinese. They are not Japhetic. So what are they? Right? This proves that the Melanesians, that the paternal side of Polynesians is majority Melanesian. So the very people that Polynesians deny because of skin color is the very people that they come from. We have images of Melanesians, right? We have some images of Melanesians to show you, right? Just to show you how closely to us they actually look, right? There's a reason why they're called black countries. Do we have those? I'm going to go ahead and pull one of these up here. The Melanesians. Fiji. Let's get Fiji. What does he look like? What does this brother look like? Interesting, right? What is that on the top of his head? What is that on the top of his head? Let's get the Fijian warriors. The Fijian warriors. What is that on their heads? Look at their skin complexion. They weren't called Black Islands for no reason. Let's get New Guinea. Papua New Guinea. Look at how they depict the chief, the chief of the Bovalip tribe in Papua New Guinea versus how they depict the European settler, the European colonizer. Oh, but you think that's a painting? No, they actually have a real picture of this brother as well. Right here. This is an actual picture of their meeting with the chief of the Bovalip tribe in Papua New Guinea. What does he look like? Look at his skin color. Let's get the Fijian army, which is a lot more recent, in case people think that that color wore off in Melanesia. What is that on all of these brothers' heads? Say that again. Say that again, brother. What are those on the top of their head?
Some big afros.
There's some big afros. Look at their skin color. No doubt, there's a reason why these lands are called the Black Countries. These are who the Polynesians and Micronesians come from. Isn't it outstanding how much you can find by doing the proper research? And this is not hidden. It's out there. There are genetic studies that show this. So as we go forward in the lesson, if you hear us generalize the entire Pacific population, that's because the entire native Pacific population come from the same people. They're all one tribe, one family, right? So it's because of this hole in Samoan history coming from the Talafa'apitosolo, Tala'afoso Pilasoto, right? O Samoa, the history of Samoa. The hole here in this particular narrative of how they got there is what causes the confusion as to the Pacific Islanders' identity. People will be more quick to accept the Fijian Islands, the Papua New Guinea, right? Because or Vanuatu, because of their skin color, right? Because they're Black, not realizing that the paternal lineages of the lighter skinned Pacific Islanders come directly from those Melanesians. It's this hole in the Samoan history that causes that confusion, right? So now we have the history of their migration from East India to the Southeast Asian islands, like Malaysia, like Indonesia, out to the Philippines, all the way out to Melanesia, and out to the Pacific Islands is not recorded. That particular part where they went to Melanesia, went further south to Melanesia and out to the Pacific Islands is not recorded. However, since we now know that the Melanesians and the Polynesians are of the same ethnicity, we can now examine whether or not their history reaches back to ancient Israel. That's step one. We had to determine who everyone on these islands were. And now we know that they're all Melanesian. They're all of one race. Let's get Hawaiian Antiquities, Mulelo, Hawaii, by David Mallow.
Hawaiian Antiquities by David Mallow. It has been said, however, that this race of people came from Lewa, the ferment the atmosphere from the inward or back of the island. The meaning of these expressions is that they came from a foreign land, that is the region of air, and the front of the land is at the back of these islands. Perhaps this was a people forced to flee hither by war, or driven in the direction by bad winds and storms. Perhaps the expression Lewa, or regions of air, Asian, is referred to. Perhaps this expression refers to the islands they visited on their way hither. So
it's detailing their journey, right? Where they came from, the area of the wind. Now, how many of you in here know how wind currents work? You have the warm wind currents that flow east. You have the cold wind currents that flow west. You're talking about the Pacific. It's the same thing with the water currents. The cold currents take you further towards the Americas, whereas the warmer currents bring you back amongst those islands. Anybody seen Moana before? Where they talked about the cold current and the warm current? That's where that came from, right? Their understanding of the currents, where to go, how to sail against the currents, how to utilize the wind to their advantage. Polynesians were the greatest voyagers and sailors the world has ever seen. I'm going to say that again. Polynesians were the greatest voyagers and sailors the world has ever seen. If anyone has ever tried to look at the surf or the Pacific Ocean and how dangerous it is to surf, number one, let alone to get on a boat in the Pacific, it's dangerous. But they were navigating these with intent for centuries in canoes. You'll see how impressive it is as we go forward, because they didn't find these islands by accident. They knew exactly where they were going. Right? Go ahead and read. Perhaps this
expression refers to
24.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps this race of people were derived from Israelites, because we know.
Perhaps these people were derived from what?
Israelites.
Were derived from what?
Israelites.
Keep in mind, David Mallow is a Polynesian himself. He is a Hawaiian intellectual. He's a high-ranking counselor, and he was a high-ranking counselor in the Hawaiian government. He was a Hawaiian intellectual, educator, politician, and minister. Right? Mm-hmm. And this book is, in particular, is detailing the history of the Polynesians as well as their possible origin as the lost tribes of Israel. Right? So he's connecting the Hawaiian ways of life, or the Hawaiian practices, the Hawaiian traditions or cultural practices that link back to Israel. Mm. So with context, read that one more time, brother.
Perhaps this race of people was derived from the Israelites.
Perhaps this race of people was derived from the... You don't just come up with that idea. You don't just see people and say, hey, those might be Israelites. Mm. Especially when you got some white folks out here calling themselves Jews. Read.
Because we know that the certain customs of the Israelites were practiced here in Hawaii.
They were practiced where?
In Hawaii.
They were practiced where?
In Hawaii.
Israelite customs practiced in Hawaii. Read.
Circumcisions, places of refuge, taboos.
Now, I want to make it clear. Circumcision was not as normally practiced as it is today. Mm-hmm. Now, circumcision is almost routine. Pretty much almost everybody gets vaccinated, especially in the U. I mean, not vaccinated, but get circumcised here in the U.S., right? Circumcision way back then was way more rare, and it was only found amongst Israelites. So when you see somebody being circumcised, you're like, hold up, that's not normal. Not everybody does this, right? So circumcision was a rare practice of this particular time, and they see these people practicing circumcision, not just circumcision, but the ritual surrounding circumcision. How many of you know that circumcision was a ritual for our people? Mm-hmm. In the 8th day, you had the naming ceremony where you would name your child and he would be circumcised. Right? It also says that they practiced places of refuge. We went over this in the lesson, in the lessons concerning the tribe of Gad, and the tribe of Issachar, and the tribe of Zebulun, and the tribe of Asher. All of them had places of refuge. What is a place of refuge? If you kill someone by accident, or you commit a crime by accident, you go to this land so that people can't come to get you. If you can kill somebody by accident, somebody's coming to kill you. So in that case, you would go to this land until it's time for your trial. You will go into a place of refuge until it's time for your trial. That was an Israelite custom. Only Israelites had places of refuge. What we would call those who are black who grew up in hoods know them as Switzerlands. They call it a Switzerland. It's a neutral area where one particular group or another particular group can't come here and wage a war. Mm-hmm. In this particular spot, you cannot cause no problems. It's a safe zone. It's a neutral zone. Now that word taboos, right? In the Polynesian language, they call it kapu. The word taboo in the modern English comes from the word taboo or kapu in Hawaiian, right? which means cleanliness rituals. How many of you know that the Israelites were very clean people? Always washing, always cleaning. We had clean and unclean customs. The Polynesians kept the same laws of purity and cleanliness and called them kapu, or taboo. So they were clean just like Israelites, washing their hands, cleaning animals, washing them off, not allowing things to be dirty, cleaning their houses, right? Organization. Read.
I'm going to start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps this race of people was derived from Israelites because we know that certain customs of Israelites were practiced here in Hawaii. Circumcisions, places of refuge, taboo, and ceremonies of purification relating to dead bodies and their burial.
So they had one specific family that handled dead bodies in their burial, which was also an Israelite custom. Because if anybody's going and handling and dealing with dead bodies, everybody's unclean. So they had one specific family that dealt with, and it was the same way when you go to Europe in some areas, where they would say, okay, there's one particular family that owns the mortuary. They're the only ones who handle all of this stuff. Or they called them undertakers. That began in Israel. So they didn't have everybody around here handling dead bodies. They also practiced burial, which was also rare and specific to Israelites. Why? Because the bodies that we have now will be resurrected. So we need the bodies that we have to go into the ground. If you burn your body, you have nothing to resurrect with, which is why Romans, Greeks, and the heathen burn their bodies. Right? It's called cremation, where they take your loved one and burn them and give you something's ashes. I don't know how you can take. If you've ever seen a person burnt down before, there's a lot more ashes than can fit in a little jar. So I don't know what they're giving these people, but it ain't uncle or auntie. Not to mention, it takes a very, very, very long time to burn a body down to the point of ashes. So I don't know what y'all getting. But it must be somebody, dog or cat or something, but it's not uncle, auntie, grandpa, grandma. Right? So they practiced burial, and they had specific people to deal with burial practices. Read.
Relating to dead bodies and their burial. Taboos and restrictions pertaining to flowing women.
So cleanliness concerning to a woman in her cycle. Remember, what did Israelites do? They sent the woman in her cycle away, so as not to cause everyone in the house to become unclean. It says, "Do not touch her. Do not lie with her when she's in her week." Right? They practiced this. Keep in mind, very, very rare. Not to mention the cleanliness, the washing. Taboo means cleanliness. They're cleaning and washing themselves. The same practices that they held in Israel. Read.
And the taboo that secluded a woman as defiled during the 7 days after childbirth.
So remember, there's a particular time period after a woman has a child where she's unclean. With the boy is 7 days, with the girl is 14 days. They practice the same thing. The woman is unclean for 7 days or 14 days after the birth of a child. How rare is that? That was only practiced amongst Israelites. Heathens were not practicing this. Read.
All these customs were formerly practiced by the people of Hawaii.
Now, why does he say formerly? We're going to get into that. Read.
Perhaps these people are those spoken of in the word of God as the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Because of the inspection, we clearly see that the people of Asia are just like the inhabitants of these islands. Tahiti and the lands adjacent.
Now, when he talks about the people of Asia, he's not talking about people from Japheth. He's talking about those of which they descended from. Remember, they had to pass through India and Asia in order to get to these islands. So they're talking about the Cochin Jews. They're talking about Goa. They're talking about the Philippines. They're talking about Cambodia. They're talking about parts of Malaysia and Indonesia. They're not talking about the Han, right? The Han Chinese, right? They're not talking about those people, right? So David Mallow details the specifics as to why he believes his people are descended from the lost tribes of Israel. Now, with the understanding that we have of which tribe, right? Because he doesn't know which tribe, he just knows that they're descended from the lost tribes of Israel. But understanding the prophecies concerning who would dwell in the South Pacific, it's a little bit easier to connect the dots. But no, we're not there yet. We're still proving these people, right? Now, what's interesting is that the history of Samoa perfectly reflects what it is that David Mallow puts out in the Hawaiian Antiquities, right? Hawaiian history. Let's see what Fred Henry writes in the history of Samoa. This is page 3. Go ahead and read. Once again, this is translated out of the Samoan language. Read.
History of Samoa, page 3. There are many legends and scholarly testimonies of those scholars to confirm their views that Hawaki, the Polynesian somewhere on the shores of the Persian Gulf.
The Persian Gulf. Remember, let's pull up the map one more time, right? Remember the map. The Persian Gulf. How many of you know where the Persian Gulf is located? It's located in the near the Assyrian lands, right? Remember, in the time of Solomon Asher, when he carried the northern kingdoms away captive, where did he take them? He took them into Assyria, right? So they're claiming to come from Assyria just after, considering that the Assyrians, the children of Israel, were taken to Assyria. Salakia. So go ahead and read that again. Hawaiki. Start at Hawaiki.
The Hawaiki was Polynesian somewhere on the shores of the Persian Gulf, or in Arabia, or the Red Sea itself.
Read.
In fact, many Polynesians' words can be traced to Semitic origin, as well as many cultures similar to Arabic and Hebrew, such as circumcisions, bedding systems, and time observation and the like.
So they observed time the same way that the Israelites observed time. In jubilees. Interesting, right? The history of Samoa perfectly reflects the history of Hawaii, right? So we see the same customs that David Mallow points out that are consistent are not only found in the Hawaiian Islands, but also in Samoa and the like Polynesian islands. So Tonga, right? Tonga, Samoa, Hawaii, New Zealand, the Maori in New Zealand, right? So since we've confirmed that all the people of the Pacific Ocean are in fact from the same family, right? Because they all come from the Melanesians, it is now possible to speak in greater generalities as it pertains to the Israelite identity of these people. I'm going to say that again. Since we now know that they all come from one family, which is the Melanesians, and we have a detailed history of where these Melanesians came from, which is the Persian Gulf or Assyria, where the 10 tribes were carried, we can now speak in greater generalities as it pertains to the Israelite identity of these people. And perhaps come closer to the conclusion of the southernmost islands of the South Pacific. Right? We can, Salakia, we can remember, the Most High said that the tribe of Naphtali would possess what? The South Seas, right? So let's go to the southernmost island in the Pacific, which would be New Zealand, which is home to the Maori people, right? Let's go ahead and get that. This book is called Te'ika Amaui, or New Zealand and Its Inhabitants by Richard Taylor. Now, I want to make this clear because I was talking to the elder about this yesterday. There's 2 versions of this book. You have the 1855 version and you have the 1870s version. 2 very different books. This one that we're about to read is 1855. Keep in mind, all that we're reading here is not present in Teika Amawi, 1875. They removed it. Chat. They removed it. Let's get page 8 of Teika Amawi.
Teika Amawi, or New Zealand and its inhabitants, by Richard Taylor, 1855. May not this beautiful parable have its literal fulfillment in history of the New Zealand race?
Mm-hmm.
In it may we behold one of the long-lost tribes of Israel.
What?
In it may we behold one of the long-lost tribes of Israel.
So he said that the people in New Zealand, we may not behold one of the long lost tribes of Israel. Now, if you read earlier up of the parable that he's talking about the tribes that were sent away from the land of Israel and sent into captivity, right? And would lose their culture. This is what Richard Taylor is talking about. When you read Teika Amawi, the same page 8, and you read up just a little bit, it gives you the full parable, right? But he says, in it we may not behold one of the long lost tribes of Israel. Read.
In it may we not behold one of the long-lost tribes of Israel, which with its fellows, having abandoned the service of the true God and cast aside his word, fell step by step in the scale of civilization. Deprived of his fixed home, became nomad wanderers over the steeps of Asia, a byword and a reapproach among nations.
What does that sound like to you? Doesn't this sound like Deuteronomy 28? This missionary in New Zealand, along with the Maori people, is detailing the history of the Israelites, right? But instead of detailing the history of the Israelites, he's now inserted the New Zealand Islanders into this parable, right? So he said they cast aside the Most High's word, check. Fell step by step in the scale of civilization, check. Deprived of a fixed home and became nomad wanderers. We just put up the map of them wandering. Not to mention, what were the Polynesians voyaging for? They were looking for more islands. So they were, even after finding a home, they continued to wander, right? It says they became wanderers over the steppes of Asia. So they went through Asia. They became wanderers in Asia, right? And a byword and a reproach among the nations. Deuteronomy 28. Quite literally. Read.
And gradually retreated until the lapse of ages they reached the sea. And then, still preserving their wandering character, from island to island, driven by winds and currents and various causes, they finally reached New Zealand. And there fallen to their lowest state of degradation, given up to the furious passions, consumed and being consumed, they are unable to reflect, repent, and amend, and resolve to arise and go to their Father.
So he's talking about the return of these people to their God. So even Richard Taylor, when detailing, see, now we're looking at three separate Polynesian countries. You have David Mallow talking about the history of Hawaii. You have Fred Henry talking about the history of Samoa, and now you have Richard Taylor talking about the history of the New Zealand Islanders. Three separate islands, same story. Three separate islands, same story. Right? So it says, so this missionary dwelling amongst the Maori, saw them in their worst estate and knew them to be the lost tribes based purely on their journey, which echoes David Mallow and Fred Henry. Keep in mind, he's not seeing them practice the laws the same way that David Mallow or Fred Henry were observing the Samoans and the Hawaiians observing the law. He's seeing the Maori in their lowest state of sin. So he's seeing these people commit horrible acts after they've gone away from their God, but still he determines them to be Israelites. Interesting. Let's go back to Teika Amawi, page 190.
Okay. Teika Amawi, or New Zealand and its inhabitants, by Richard Taylor's page 190. In the meantime, I shall add at the end of the chapter, at the end of this chapter, a list of few words which seem to bear an infinity to many we are accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
And to conclude with venturing to hint that many points of resemblance in features, general customs, and manners may enable us to discover in the widely spread Polynesian race a remnant of the long lost tribe of Israel.
A remnant of what?
The long lost tribe of Israel.
A remnant of what?
The long lost tribe of
So
Israel.
he calls the New Zealand Islanders a remnant of the long lost tribe of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to make something clear here. He says that that the many points of resemblance in feature that's interesting, because when you look at the brothers and sisters from the Maori, is this what a Hebrew is supposed to look like? Look at the screen behind you. He says in feature or in look. So he's saying, according to the way that they look, in feature or in look, these people resemble the Israelites. So is this what Israelites must look like?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so.
Not only in feature, but in general customs, the same customs that David Mallow talked about in Hawaiian antiquities. And he says, and manners, which is according to the hospitality that the Most High commanded the children of Israel to behave with, which is also unique to the children of Israel, our hospitality, right? He says, may enable us to discover in the widely spread Polynesian race, who do the Polynesians come from? The Melanesians. So this would include the Melanesians, and it would include the Polynesians. So the entire Pacific Islander race as a remnant of the long lost remnant of Israel. The remnant of the long lost tribes of Israel. Interesting. Let's go to page 191. Let's go to the page 191, because now we're about to see something else that will really bring to light the journey of these particular people. Let's get it.
Te Ika a Maui, or New Zealand and its inhabitants, by Richard Taylor, page 191.
Mm-hmm.
So when the king of Assyria carried away the 10 tribes, that though he placed them primarily on the shores of the Caspian, that would not long suit their inhabitants of traffic.
Whoa, check that out. Let's pull up that map one more time. Keep in mind, this map comes from the History of Samoa book. Where does it say that? Where is the starting point on this map? The Caspian Sea. Mm-hmm. The Caspian Sea. And then we see Richard Taylor in Te Ika a Maui say that, so when the king of Assyria carried away the 10 tribes, he placed them primarily on the shores of the Caspian. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing the dots being connected. The king of Assyria, when he carried off the 10 tribes, placed them at the Caspian, and the Samoan people draw their history, their origin, back to the Caspian. Interesting. Read.
They would doubtless seek the grand marts of commerce.
Mm-hmm.
No longer possessing fixed homes, they became merchants as a matter of course. And those who still continue to love war and independence or a pastoral life would retire before their enemies. And thus should it be proved that Afghans and Jews...
Wait, no, go back. Read that one more time.
And thus it should be proved that Afghans are Jews.
That they are what?
Jews.
We went over that last week. We proved last week that the Afghans were Jews. That they're Israelites. But remember, when we made that statement last week, we said that it was not only the tribe of Asher, but also the tribe of Naphtali. This is why the inhabitants of Kabul, the Pashtun in Afghanistan, are considered to be a mix of the tribe of Asher and Naphtali, because the tribe of Naphtali passed through. Kabul. They made a home or a residence there. So he professes here that the Afghans are Jews. In fact, if you look it up, majority of Jews say that they're just as Jewish as any, if not more. Read.
We see how they reached that country. Will it some, perhaps, those from Babylon remain in India?
They remained where?
Remain in India.
See how everything is coming together? Remember how I told you to remember the part one of this series? Remember how I told you to remember the 12 tribes chart lesson where we talked about Portuguese India? See how it's all coming full circle? Go ahead and read that part one more time. While it's some, perhaps those from Babylon remain in India. Read.
As the black Jews state they have done, some would pass on thence.
As the who Jews stated they have done?
The black Jews.
The who Jews?
The black Jews.
Read.
As the black Jews state they have done, some would pass on thence, and the people of Indian Isles, as the Malays.
The Malays, Malaysia, right?
Mm.
So now he's making the connection of now they've passed through India, out to Southeast Asia, and on to the Indian Isles, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines. Isn't it interesting that he's detailing the same path to the Pacific that Fred Taylor in the History of Samoa and David Mallow in the Hawaiian Antiquities detailed? The exact same journey. Except at Teika Amawi, Richard Taylor, this missionary, has more detail. Read.
From the Caspian, many have followed the caravans across Central Asia, Tibet, and
Tartary,
until they have reached the eastern coast, and thence from island to island, this race doomed to wander may have done so either intentionally or otherwise, as ships are constantly picking up canoes, which have drifted away from their island's home.
So we know based off of history and evidence that they did not drift where they went by accident. They were very intentional with where they went. Keep in mind, they're the greatest voyagers that ever lived. They didn't get anywhere by accident. When you read the history of Samoa, you see that they learned how to read the stars. They learned the currents, right? They learned the use of the winds, the wind currents, the trade winds, right? To get from here to there. They knew exactly where they were going. Right? Hence how they knew what ship to take, because keep in mind, they had different size canoes. You had the double hull canoe, you had a regular canoe, you had the larger canoes for longer journeys. They knew which ones to take to get to a particular island. If they needed to travel long distances, they would take the largest canoe, they would take a larger amount of people and bring more food, because they knew that it would be a long journey. If it was a shorter journey, chances are they're not going to be using a double hull canoe. Right? So once again, we see yet another scholar confirm the exact path detailed in the history of Samoa, while it's still excluding their travel through the Melanesian islands. So it's the same exact path. He also excludes, just like the history of Samoa, he excludes the Melanesian islands. They travel through the Melanesian islands. This not only confirms that the Polynesians are indeed Israelites, but also the exact route that they took from the Pacific Ocean, where remnants would be left along the way. Ever wonder why you see so many small small tribes throughout Southeast Asia and India that keep Jewish customs, Israelite customs? This is why. So, even though it's been proved that these people are indeed a lost tribe, it doesn't completely confirm which tribe of the Polynesians belong. This can be found by continuing to follow the map drawn by Jacob and Moses, right? What's that map? The prophecies from Deuteronomy chapter 33 and the prophecies from Genesis chapter 49. So we still have some proving to do. We're going to take a quick break and come back and get into the third part of this lesson where we're going to further break down these particular prophecies, right? So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back.
Hey, the brother told me the other day, he said, hey, if y'all play this at a high holy day, you guaranteed to make the people dance like Dave. Okay. I said, oh yeah. Hey, karate side, make you lean and rock. I make your knees bend, I make you move non-stop. I got the beat hard like a crooked old cop. And when the beat drop out, you gon' say the thing hot. Look, I'm dancing with no shame, dancing with no shame. See, I'm moving something like Dave did, got broke free from them chains. See, I'm a new man, I made real change, but they calling me insane. I got me the true man, I got a new name, and I'm far away from them flames. And now I'm dancing like I'm spinning on the lowly and Poland. Got these other nations watching like he really got the Holy Ghost. Your shine came and scooped me, now you really see the new me. I'm just dancing like I'm David, that's just how we do it. Judah. Hey, dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave.
Dancing everywhere.
Dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance, dance, dance like Dave.
Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance, dance, dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance.
Where my sisters at, and keep it all modest though. Head scar, that's how we go. Virtuous women in the making, no mistaken. We are now tuned in to this proper tutorial. Where are the sisters that hold their husbands down? Where are the sisters being obedient to receive this crown? We back to the business, back to our natural use, back to our beginning. Restoring what Eve did, lesson well worth it. We moving about like we worth it, we deserve it. We forever proving, not complicated like a Rubik's Cube. Do it's not like the hottest dude. Teach Jezebel's a thing or two. Now we can dance like Sarah. Wave your hands like Esther. Step and fade like Hannah. We can step and fade like Hannah.
Hey, dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave.
Dancing everywhere.
Dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance, dance, dance like Dave.
Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance, dance, dance like Dave. We gon' make it dance like Dave.
Numbers 15 and 38. That's me though, getting my swag on. I'm bouncing, screaming the credo. Boy, this ain't no twerk song, more like a anthem. Sisters are looking beautiful, brothers are looking handsome. David did a dance off. He was Hebrew. All of the other nations respected and keep their hands off. We dancing. We used to do that. We been leaning and rocking for years. I thought you knew that. We don't need a shot of Patron to get us moving. All we need is the word and the Christ, and we'll be grooving. I'ma need ankle support, cause I'ma be dancing like David for so long it might just bring and get sore.
Hey, dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave.
Dancing everywhere.
Dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance, dance, dance like Dave.
Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance, dance, dance like Dave.
Like Yeshaya's here.
We gon' make it dance like Dave. Dance. Okay, now on this part of the song, I want y'all to turn up, turn up. We about to praise the Most High, because he's the one that brought you out of these chains. He's the one that gave you this truth. Dance, 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 dance like this. Dance, 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 dance. We gon' make you dance like this. Dance. Karata's out, Akkad, your Pod Q, Rashawn Judah. Yeah, dance like David. We just made you dance like David. Hey.
We back. we back. All right. So, like I said, we're gonna go back to following the same map, right? We went down the particular history concerning these tribes. Now we're gonna sort of go double time and start breaking down who these people are, right? As far as their cultures and customs that link directly back to their father, right? So let's go back to what Naphtali's name means. What? Who knows what Naphtali's name in here means? My wrestling, right? His name means my wrestling. So therefore, we should find a presence of this sport amongst these people, right? Let's get to Ika Amawi. This is page 179.
Teika Amawi, or New Zealand and Its Inhabitants, by Richard Taylor, page 173. Tekaro ringa, or wrestling, was a very general amusement of young men who prided themselves on their skills in throwing one another as much, perhaps, as our own countrymen have ever done.
So a big part of their lifestyle and a part of their culture and pastime was wrestling. Now, what you find when you do research on Polynesians, Micronesians, and Melanesians, majority of the things that they did in pastime were to then enhance themselves in war. So for sport, they would throw spears, they would throw axes, right? These are things that they did for fun, for pastime, right? So wrestling was a big part of their culture and what they would do as a people, and we also see it today. There's a large amount. There's a large presence of Polynesians, Micronesians, and Melanesians in professional wrestling. People like Peter Maivia, Jimmy Snuka, Rikishi, Umaga, Jimmy and Jay Fatu, who are Rikishi's twin boys, right? Guys like Roman Reigns, right? They're all Samoan, right? Wrestling is a big part of their culture and what they do, right? Let's also get talkradionews.com. This is an article that's entitled, "Why Are Polynesians So Big? All You Need to Know About Polynesians." Read.
It is a vital aspect to have a good look into. Samoans and other islanders were always challenging one another. They wrestled a lot and were great warriors. Having weight and size as was vital to being a good warrior. Most winners, most have been powerful. The strongest wrestlers usually bred with more women, spreading their genes. In addition, the Polynesians preferred big women. The prominent, strongest male wrestler breeding with big, strong women, side, powerful offspring.
So wrestling was a huge part of Polynesian culture, Polynesian, Micronesian, and Melanesian culture. And they would even breed so that their children would gain those same attributes. So they're creating and essentially creating the most powerful offspring they can, right? Which shows that they marry for what? Legacy. Which is what? An Israelite custom. You marry for legacy. They marry so that, hey, I'm big, you big, let's make a bigger child. Right? Not to mention that their diet played a really big role in how big these people became, right? According to the scriptures, the tribe of Naphtali were a physically imposing people, right? Naphtali was known for being a monster of a man with a lot of power and athleticism. The things that he could do with his size were not normal, right? It is these same traits that make the Pacific Islanders prime scouting grounds, the Pacific Islands prime scouting grounds for sports like football and rugby. I don't know if y'all know how much the Pacific Islands are scouted for talent as it pertains to rugby and football. But they're literally built for it. They're physically built for it. Not only does their genetics contribute to their massive size and extraordinary physical abilities, they also live in the perfect environment for optimizing their body's ability to grow and develop. So the land that they live on is perfect. Polynesia, the islands of Polynesia all contain about 20 different starches. While every other country, every other continent on the planet only contains about 2 or 3. So if you have 20 different starches, you're talking about taro, sweet potato, right? Potatoes, all these roots, and this is all they're eating. Imagine how much muscle mass they're putting on, right? So combined with the fact that they have about 20 different starches throughout the islands, coupled with a diet of coconuts, coconut water, fresh fruit, and fish, and already mighty genetics, you have a recipe for a physically dominant people. You go to Tonga and you find a person like Vita Vea who's 6'5", 350 pounds, but runs a 40 in 5 seconds. He runs a 5'10", a 5'1", in the 40. You have a guy who's 5'10" in Troy Polamalu, 5'10", 210 pounds, but ran a 4.33 40, which is just as fast as any wide receiver or running back or corner. And he also, at 5'10", 210 pounds, has a vertical only 1 inch less than Michael Jordan. Think about that. 5'10", a little over 200 pounds, running a 4.3, running a 4.3, and a vertical about the same as Michael Jordan. Not to mention Vita Vea at 6'5", 350 pounds. Not only did he run a 5.1, which is crazy, but he also benched did his bench max 250 pounds at the combine 41 times, only 8 reps less than the record. Sheer power and speed. Let's get fluentrugby.com. Fluentrugby.com is article called Why Pacific Islanders Are So Good at Rugby. Let's get that.
Pacific Islanders are naturally mesomorphs.
Mesomorphs,
which means they are naturally large people who can gain weight, including muscle fat, easily. They have thick frames, wide shoulders, large heads, and thick wrists and ankles. Mesomorphs tend to be very strong and explosive. These physical attributes make Pacific Islanders perfectly suited to the rigorous of rugby.
Mm-hmm.
Freaky athletic prowess appears to be more far common among Pacific Islanders than other groups of people. It is totally common to line up against Pacific Islanders players who are 120 kilograms or 264 pounds with ankles thicker than your calves,
mm-hmm.
and wrists as wide as forearms, who can dust your winger or over 22 yards. This is unusual mix of size and speed, which is perfectly suited to rugby. Is rare in most population groups, but is far more among Pacific Islanders.
Ever wonder why Fiji and New Zealand are always winning rugby at the Olympics? Always. Always. New Zealand rugby pretty much dominates the sport. The Maori dominate the sport. If you look at a Maori rugby player compared to an American football player in shoulder pads, you're looking at a man who, without pads on, who's about the same size as an American football player with pads on. They're huge. Right? But not that it says it's totally common to line up against a guy who's 265 pounds just about, but can dust what's supposed to be your fastest position by 22 yards. An unimaginable combination of size and speed. Like I said, the example that I gave, Vita Vea is 6'5", 350 pounds, but he sprints 15 to 20 yards to make a tackle out of the backfield. That shouldn't be possible, right? The Hawaiians were also known for their swiftness, much like a hind let loose. Remember, the scriptures say that Naphtali would be what? A swift deer, right? Let's get Hawaiian Antiquities by David Mallow. This is page 301. Double time.
Hawaiian Antiquities by Page Mallow, page 301. Foot racing kanuki was a very popular amusement. It was associated with betting and was conducted in the following manner. The kanuki or swift
Kukini.
Kukini or swift runners were a class of men who were trained with great severity and made it to practice running very frequently until they attained great speed. When the people wished to indulge in betting, a number of facets of this class were selected, and two of this numbers were chosen to run a race.
Okay, so they conducted island racing in the Hawaiian Islands, as well as they're recorded in the islands of New Zealand and in Melanesia as well. So they would train and race to see who was faster among the fastest people on the island. Let's drop down to the footnotes and see just how fast these people were, according to. It's in the same spot. Right there, according to.
Okay. According to other authorities, it should be. Okay.
According to
other authorities, it should be
Ka'ai or Ka'i.
To practice, train, and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
The runner was first exercising walking on his toes without touching the heels of his foot to the ground.
So they would practice. Now, keep in mind, explosion usually comes. Fast twitch muscles usually come from the calves and the thighs. So to activate those fast twitch muscles, you do certain drills or exercises to activate those fast twitch muscles. By walking on the toes, right? By keeping your heels off the ground, your explosiveness or your ability to push either off the ground or to charge forward becomes greater. So they walk on their toes, read.
Then he was set to running, at first for a short distance and at a moderate pace. Finally, he was made to run at full speed for great distance. While in training, they were denied poi and all soggy, heavy foods, but were fed on rare, done flesh of fowl and roasted vegetables, taro, sweet potatoes, breadfruit, etc.
So they were put on a particular diet so that they could optimize their ability to run, right? So all they ate was starch. They would go on a diet where they would eat starch. Go ahead and slide on a little bit. They were put on a diet where all they would consume is starch and fruit. Now, many would think starches make you heavier, right? Starches make you heavier. They're eating starch to optimize their ability to run, right? Denied themselves wet. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen poi before. It's wet. You eat it with your fingers, right? And usually with fish. They weren't eating wet or sticky foods because it sticks to your stomach, right? And it was a diet similarly that King Kamehameha put his commandos on. He put them on a similar diet where all they ate was roots and heavy food, right? Go ahead and read.
Kachale, son of Kamuko,
a king of Kamukoa,
a king of Molokai, who was contemporary with Alapai Nui of Hawaii, was a celebrated
Kukini. He was a celebrated runner. Yeah, celebrated. Check out what they says his feats were. Read.
It is related of him that he could run from Koana as far as to Halawa, a return before Halawa, and return before fish put on the fire at the time of his starting had time to be roasted. You must double, literally piece out your speed to catch koalai.
Okay, so basically what they're saying is he could run a distance of about 50 to 60 miles or longer with the fish in his hand. So he would drop off the fish, leave, and come back, and he could be back before the fish was done cooking. So you put the fish on the fire, he runs and comes back, and by the time that he comes back from this particular journey, the fish is just being finished roasting. That's the kind of speed that they said these people had, right? They say you have to double your speed to catch him, right? It's no coincidence that running races was an enormous part of Islander culture, right? And it was one of the major traveling sports in the ancient Pacific world. Keep in mind, they weren't just racing each other. They would travel to other people's islands. And usually people would travel with them and make bets on their races. They'd be like, yeah, I put my house on this person. Yeah, I'll put this down on this person. I bet my wife. There were people who bet their wives and their houses on racers, on runners. Right? So they had gambling as well. This was a traveling sport. Right? It says that it recorded them running long distances, such as around islands, from one city to another in outstanding times, much like what we find with Naphtali in the book of Jasher. Right? We're coming to a close now, right? Naphtali and his descendants were known for being excellent warriors, right? Naphtali was an excellent warrior. This is something that we find amongst the Polynesians, right? This is something that we should find amongst the Polynesians. Should they actually be from the tribe of Naphtali? The Polynesians and Melanesians were infamous in the old world for their prowess, innovation, and overall dominance on the battlefield. Between the Maori, the Kamehameha's commandos, the Koa of Hawaii, Fiji's devastating armies, Easter Islands men, the Tongan warriors, and Samoans, these warriors made up some of the finest men in battle there are. Ever wonder why New Zealand has such a powerful army? Majority of their army is made up of Maori, right? I mean, ever wonder why it took so long for Samoa to be conquered? King Kamehameha's commandos were masters of war on land and on sea. And his commandos single-handedly united the kingdom of Hawaii through war. All the islands of Hawaii were united by King Kamehameha. The Maori were the fiercest warriors and are known for inventing what we know today as trench warfare. They invented trench warfare. And the Europeans didn't know how to defend against it, so they decided just to start going to Maori cities and killing their women and children and burning down their cities because they didn't want no parts of the Maorian war, right? And finally, the Ianu in Japan had the samurai, right? We sounds familiar, right? We went over the Ainu people in Japan with the tribe of Gad, right? Interesting fact: the Ainu people are from the greater group of Jama, right? Naphtali also had the Polynesians and Melanesians also have paternal genetic ties to the Ainu in Japan. What's also interesting is that the word samurai is Hebrew, right? Sumerian. That's where that word comes from. It comes from the name Samaria. Samurai, Samaria. Right? Naphtali, the samurai were arguably some of the most iconic warriors in history. The ninja, those were Polynesians. The Polynesians were the original ninja. In fact, King Kamehameha's commandos are the inspiration for what we know as Black Ops today. Black Ops, Navy SEALs, that came from King Kamehameha's commandos. That was inspired by them. Because the Europeans would go onto the Polynesian land and they couldn't find anybody. And they would continue to walk into the woods and people would just get snatched up. They couldn't see where they were coming from. They couldn't hear these people. And keep in mind, King Kamehameha was over 7 feet tall. He wasn't a small guy. He began training at 7 or 8 years old. It was common, once you turned 7 or 8, you began to be trained to enter into King Kamehameha's commandos, his army. So these are young people who have been trained from the age of 7 and 8 to be the perfect warrior, put on the perfect diets, taught the practice of every weapon imaginable, including the muskets, to become masters of war. Keep that in mind when we continue to examine the history, because it's because of their prowess in war that we see the U.S. Army in Polynesia today. We're gonna get into that. So the Ainu's closest relatives have closest relatives to the Polynesians, and 6 of them are from the tribe of Gad, coming from the greater group of Jaman. Right? Let's get Slavers in Paradise. This is Slavers in Paradise, the Peruvian labor trade in Polynesia. See, a lot of people don't know that the Polynesians, the Micronesians, and Melanesians went through similar slave captivities as the children of, as blacks or the Native Americans in the U.S. Let's go ahead and get that. This is by H.E. Maud.
This is the story of barques and brigs that sailed out of Calo in Peru, calling at every Pacific island group except Hawaii, kidnapping thousands of men and women and children by violence and treachery, and transporting them to slavery and death. It is an absorbing narrative of the conflict between human greed and bewildered innocence, set in the romantic isles of the South Seas. It tells of how the unsuspecting islanders were captured, leaving in many cases only the aged and the children to reconstruct their stricken communities of what befell them as slaves in Peru.
Okay, so during the 19th century, the Polynesians, Micronesians, and Melanesians suffered hard bondage at the hands of Australia, South America, the European settlements in Australia, South America, and even the Pacific Islands themselves. They were kidnapped and often paid, and sometimes paid very poor wages to the islanders, and often put them on slave ships to any particular country or island where their services were required. So what they were doing was, we're going to use Samoa as an example. They would kidnap people and take them. Okay, if they need sugar plant people to plant and harvest sugar cane, they would bring them to the island of Hawaii, where they would suffer hard bondage. Or if they needed them to pick cotton or tobacco. This is why you see Polynesian populations in places like Peru, Chile, and places like Bolivia, right? So when you look at other tribe charts where it talks about the tribe of Naphtali being in Chile and Argentina, they're not from Chile and Argentina, but they were rather enslaved in Chile and Argentina, right? And there are also genetic ties between Chileans and Rapa Nui or Easter Island, those Polynesians, because they traded amongst each other. That's how the sweet potato, which is native to South America, ended up throughout all of the Polynesian islands in the Pacific. They got there because the Polynesians were in ancient world prior to Columbus's arrival, were trading with South Americans. That's how we know that they were very intentional. They knew exactly where they were going when they were finding these islands, right? So we got to cut it short. We have to cut the lesson short today, unfortunately, but we're going to be coming back to sort of drop the rest of the information that we have, the rest of the sources that we have on this particular lesson. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I tried to sort of speed it up so that we could fit it in there, but we're going to close it out here, right? The islands of the Pacific not only fit the prophecies given by Moses and Jacob, but the people also reflect the character, nature, and prophecies given to them as well. This makes the natives who inhabit the islands of the Pacific from Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia, and the settlements from travel can also be found in areas such as Portuguese India, which is Bombay, Goa, and Cochin, Kabul, Afghanistan, Nepal, just outside or on the interior of India, Southeast Asia or Sinem, meaning you're looking at Cambodia, different places like that, Cambodia and the other areas in Southeast Asia. You're looking at Malaysia, Indonesia, Madagascar, East Africa, and the Philippines. Now, to clarify, there are populations of these people there. That does not mean that is the only tribe that dwells there, because there are other tribes that migrated through those areas to get to the lands that they're in now. For example, the tribe of Reuben passed through those same areas to get to Australia, right? And a lot of people would notice and say, well, Madagascar is off the coast of East Africa, and East Africa is in the opposite direction of the Pacific. That's because they were going from the Pacific and trading with East Africa and Madagascar, once again proving that they knew exactly where they were going when they were voyaging. Right? So there are populations of the tribe of Naphtali in Africa. Right? Naphtali via slavery can also be found in Peru, Chile, and other parts of South America, as well as Australia, Alaska, and Canada. There's a large population of Polynesians, Micronesians, and Melanesians in Australia because of slavery. Australia denies that they ever had slavery in their land. It's a lie. It's well known. And what we're talking about, that slavery that we're talking about, is called blackbirding. right? It's called blackbirding. For more information proving their links to the trade in East Africa, there's an article called Evidence of Austronesian Genetic Lineages in East Africa and in South Arabia and the Complex Dispersal from Madagascar to Southeast Asia. We're going to be going over this in a lesson on the tribe of Benjamin. The Indonesians trade, the tribe of Naphtali, Indonesia, trading with Madagascar and their mixture with the Benjamites from there, right? A notable biblical figure from the tribe of Naphtali is Barak and Haram. Barak is the one who, along with Deborah, helped to liberate the 10 tribes from the king of Hazor, right? And Haram was, and this is interesting because a lot of people believe that Haram is a Gentile because his father was from Tyre and his mother was from the tribe of Dan. Not so. His father was from Tyre, but he was descended from the tribe of Naphtali. Right, and next week we're going. Next week we're going to be going over the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Right, we're going to be going over the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Once again, Slovakia, brothers and sisters, we don't have enough time on the camera to get all of the sources, but we will be back hopefully sometime soon to reveal the rest of the sources that we have concerning the tribe of Naphtali. So unfortunately, this lesson is more so incomplete. Not the information that we wanted to bring out is not complete, and we want to make sure that it all comes full circle. So we're going to make a separate video concerning the extra sources that we didn't get to in this lesson sometime soon. So look for that. We want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High. The Water Brother Ash did an awesome job today. We want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshaya, Wa Rawak. It can't be done without him. The work can't get done without him. And we thank everyone who was here on the Sabbath to enjoy this blessed lesson. If you have any questions, comments, put them in the chat. Okay, yeah, and we also want to send we also want to say hello to our brothers and sisters in Sierra Leone, Freetown, Sierra Leone. Those who are watching from the Philippines as well, Shalom. Those who are new to the channel, subscribe, follow. Those who are watching today, Shalom, bless you. We hope that you all have a blessed Sabbath. And we also remind you all that right above us right here, we have our tithes and donations. If you are a part of the church, you can send tithes. Make sure that you mark it for what you want that money used for. So if you want that money to go towards, feast days, send it to the Cash App that you see above you and mark it feast days, right? So that way it can be allocated towards certain things, right? So with that, brothers and sisters, if there are any questions or comments, we will take those now very quickly, and then we will wish you all Godspeed and close out the Sabbath. Do we have any questions or comments? Right? Oh, yeah. I didn't mention the donations. Donations are for anyone who is subscribed to the channel. You may not be baptized into the church, but if you're subscribed to the channel and you would like to donate, the same thing applies. You would market donation. You would send it to the same Cash App, market donation, and what that donation is for. All right. So do we have anything in the chat, Elder? This is an amazing and informative lesson. It's so beautiful to know who we are and who our people are. The Most High is absolutely amazing. All praise to the Most High. That's why we do these lessons. That's why we do these lessons, to inform the children of Israel of who they are. We do have some pictures left. We're going to run through those really quickly while we run the comments over the screen. This here image of King George Tupou. King George Tupou of Tonga. He's the first king of Tonga. Quite obviously a black man. But when you look at the image of him in textbooks in the UK, they whitewash him. He's whitewashed in those textbooks, right? These are our brothers and sisters. These are children from the Solomon Islands. These are children from the Solomon Islands, which is a mixture of the tribe of Naphtali and the tribe of Gad. And yes, their hair does naturally grow blonde. That's natural, right? These are our brothers and sisters in Hawaii, right? Similar thing, right? This is a warrior. and keep in mind that's a pick that he's holding in his hand. That is a pick that he's holding in his hand, a pick for an afro. So yes, we did have those instruments for the afros that they had back in the day. So yeah, that's a pick. These are what the brother on the far left of your screen is from the Aborigines of Australia. The other two, the one in the middle and to the right, are Hawaiian, are from the island of Hawaii, Salakia. Right? These are our brothers and sisters in the Philippines. Our brothers and sisters in the Philippines. There's a warrior from the Philippines. Once again, he's black. Right? This is a depiction of a Micronesian warrior from the Marshall Islands. This here is an image of King Kamehameha and his commandos. We did have another picture, another painting that was made of their warfare, the warfare that they made on the waters, over the waters. But once again, these men were of great size. King Kamehameha, look at King Kamehameha in the front. He's on the front left of your screen. He's 7 feet tall. So how much taller is the man in the middle behind him? Just think about that for a second. This is King Kamehameha's son, King Kamehameha the second or the third. It's either his son or his grandson. Right? This is an image of those who were blackbirded, the blackbirding that took place over the islands. Look at these people, and what do they look like? Now keep in mind, these are the people who are serving hard bondage in whatever particular country that they're in, whether it be sugar, whether it be tobacco, whether it be corn. But look at these people. Look at their color. Look at their hair. Right? And just in case we don't know if Deuteronomy 28 and 68 was fulfilled with these people as far as slave ships, check this out. These are the Kanakas being rounded up from their island and being put on ships to be taken elsewhere for hard bondage and servitude. Right? Just in case we thought that their story was void of ships. Right? And this is King George Tupou the second. This is King George the first son. But keep in mind, Tonga was never conquered for a reason. Tonga was never once conquered for a reason. They were never colonized by the European. Right? So we will be bringing the rest of the sources sometime in the future, but we want to wish you all God's speed. Mm-hmm. We pray that you all have a blessed Sabbath and a week going forward. So we want to give all thanks and praise once again to the Most High, Ahaya B'Hashem Yeshaya while we're out. We wish we had been able to finish here, but the elder and I will work something out to where we can make sure we get the rest of those sources out to you. And most likely we'll have more sources by then. But we'll see you all once again when we go over our next lesson, the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. So with that, we would like to wish you all Godspeed, blessings, and continue to pray for us as we continue to pray for you. And with that, we will say Shabbat Shalom.
I don't know if it's the batteries are just not